More, bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.arganissima.com. Arganissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty. Arganissima, New York.
Well, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio. I have a very, sweet treat today, actually. As I always promise, new day, new show, new guest, new topic. This time it's not a new guest. Actually, it's someone who has been already on the channel a few times. And, there's an interest today to have this person come back to the show because we've talked almost throughout the history of COVID. Before and during and just before the vaccine. And, we had a lot of discussion about some of the stuff. And then today we are bringing her back with us to talk about the vaccine rollout and where it is, and the status. Now, I'm trying to be mysterious, but, without further ado, I have with me Joan Melendez, President and CEO of Xcelrate, and she has been on the show to discuss recalls and medical devices and so on and so forth. And we talked about all that world. And in the time of the vaccine decision and the vaccine making, we talked also about what that would look like. But then we gave it some time. Now it's been a few months since the vaccine has been in the market, or vaccines rather, and we've heard good and bad and ugly. And so would like
or not.
Or not. So Joan, welcome back to the show and to the community here. Thank you for accepting this follow-up invitation here. And
thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate our discussions.
Oh, I enjoy them, and I think a lot of people actually have. And you bring a whole different value and a world that most of us, I didn't know much about it. I mean, I knew about recalls in some other worlds, but not in the medicine. Right. And it's so sad that I'm in the healthcare, right? But I learned more through your discussions than I've known in decades, right? But last we left it off, we talked about just the vaccine and what it took to make it, not to make it, but like how it would be distributed and stuff. We talked about distribution,
right.
How we it would be.
Oh no. You froze.
A what?
You froze there for a minute.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
How about now?
No, you're good now.
Okay, I can cut that. So let me just reset that one. So we were talking about the vaccine when it rolled out and how it was being transported and how long it would be saved and kind of like put into a certain time frame and temperature. And we talked about some of the details before it's administered. So we can take it right from there and then move forward a few months to today. So what had happened? I mean, I know the last time we talked about that. We can rewind back to then and then maybe take it a minute. So what can you tell us about that part?
Well, it's always my concern in any administration of or use of medical devices or biologics, and vaccines fall under a biologic umbrella. Mm-hmm. What are the actual steps that you need to follow to use and administer, including the distribution? So mm-hmm. when we're talking about temperature storage, there's a handoff with biologics. You actually have to track them from the moment you order them. You're supposed to get, your shipping ID and know when that's going to be coming in, because you are supposed to be tracking the temperature. So when you receive that, you're supposed to be documenting the temperature that you received it at. You're supposed to be looking at the packaging to make sure it's intact. And on the vaccines, you're not supposed to open the boxes like so many were going, oh, look it, we got our supply. And they would open their boxes and, and right there, that can introduce an adverse event. So,
oh, wow.
It's the handling, and people don't really realize that. Again, with medical devices and biologics, people assume that the FDA is really in more control than they are. And they're really not. They're an advisory, in my opinion, more of an advisory position. Just like with recalls, that's one of the things we're going to be really talking about tonight. Recalls are voluntary. It's not the FDA going to the manufacturer and saying, hey, we see that there's been this many adverse events reported. We need to talk about the potential of pulling you from the market. No, it's after too many adverse events, the manufacturer finally goes, there's too much liability for us to have this on the market. We need to pull it off. And we look at, with the vaccines, with the Johnson and Johnson, when that particular manufacturing site had a problem and they had to recall those lot numbers. Again, it's to the distribution. So if you bought that through a distributor, how do you know what lot numbers you got? Because many distributors don't tell the hospitals or the doctors what lot numbers they're sending them. They're just saying, hey, we're sending you the Johnson and Johnson, the Pfizer. We're not telling you what lot numbers we're sending you. But you do, when you look at the vials, you see the lot numbers, but you have to look at the vials to see the lot numbers, or the boxes to see the lot numbers, So it's that hard communication. So it makes it so difficult to identify when something's recalled, let alone, really that process of who begins the recall. Again, it's voluntary.
Wow. Well, so that's a whole bunch of information that you're just throwing at us right now. So I want to break that stuff a little bit down. So the first part is, you mentioned something very interesting about transportation and, preservation of that particular, vials and the lot and stuff like that. But there's a few things that happen, in this particular instance with the vaccine of COVID, right? The rush to get it out, the number of distribution, venues or companies and literally just different organizations. Some of them may be adequately, I guess, equipped to do it, and some may not have been. So if the first part that we may have to talk about right now is just like the process. So the manufacturer, whether Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson, they have produced X amount of product of these vaccines, right? And now there is a demand coming from all over the nation, and maybe some of it is even from overseas.
Other countries.
Other countries, exactly. So then now you have, I believe, the Army, I think, was involved in this, distribution initially, right? If I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
And then they had to coordinate all these things. And then to your point, now it goes to a distribution, area, and then those may have to resell it, maybe, or not resell it, maybe just reproduce it to local, groups. Like in my company, for example, we were getting those, and then we were able to do vaccinations in the community. And some hospital systems have received them. Now I see pharmacies, all over that are administering the vaccines, and so it's becoming more common in local places. There's a lot of moving parts. And to your point, the first part is if it leaves wrong, the lot is not going to produce the same effects or the results, thus adverse reaction. So did I cover the actual process more or less as how it breaks?
Yeah. So there's a middleman in there. There's the governments in there.
Okay.
So when the manufacturers produce the biologics, the vaccine, it's distributed to the states. So the states then act as the middleman to distribute it to
the cities, the townships.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the government now, we have a good government, is also contracting with the big pharmaceutical chains to make sure that, they're just trying to make sure there's no holes anywhere, because you're going to have,
Walgreens, CVS's,
yeah, it's the easiest way. So there's a lot of distribution channels at the beginning. So, and when you're talking about distributing, 3 different vaccines that have different requirements in handling, the Pfizer one, it's super cold storage. Somebody was telling me that it changed. I really need to look that up, so I will let you know. But it has super cold storage. You also have to add the diluent into it. I just saw a recall again for a sodium, chloride, which is used to dilute that Pfizer. So, you have moving parts for the Pfizer drug. You have the cold storage, you have to remove it from cold storage, you have to, prep it. So how are you going to be removing it from cold storage? Are you going into the refrigerator, or are you going just into the counter to use it? Did you make sure that you looked at the vial? On Moderna and on Pfizer, you have to invert the vial when you don't shake it, when you're trying to mix it, or when it's thawed out, you invert it gently 10 times. Johnson & Johnson, you shake. So, are the staff being trained and prompted to make sure that they're documenting each one of these steps, and where's the safety? So when I'm looking at the adverse events that are happening, that are at least being reported, because a lot of people didn't even use V-Safe to report their immunization. And it's so critical for people to use V-Safe, but that wasn't talked about, and we really needed that for people who are hesitant to get the vaccine, because all you hear about are the horror stories. And the horror stories are, in my opinion, can be traced back to, was it handled inappropriately? Did a freezer go out and they didn't know it? And then, what was introduced there? Was there a pre-existing condition that really wasn't released yet to have the immunization? So those are the only reasons that you should watch it. And as a consumer, we have to be aware, like when I went and had mine, I wanted to see that vial. I wanted to see that syringe, and she showed it to me, because you have that report of the Walgreens back in the beginning where they injected air into people. There was nothing in the vial, in the syringes. Oh, yeah. So how that can happen, but and 1,000+ people were vaccinated that had to then go back, and so this is why you have the hesitancy. It's because you hear these adverse events of people getting sick, but how did you prep before you went in for your immunization? And it's these things that aren't talked about that are part of the emergency use authorization. Now they're starting to apply for, use regular, FDA approval. And at that point, now there are regulations, but the EUAs have regulations, the emergency use authorizations are regulated, but if I don't follow it, who's going to know? And what's going to happen to me if I don't follow it?
Well, so that's a pretty specific breakdown of things that you just shared with us, and definitely we want to highlight the V-Safe concept, because people watching, listening, do this: report when you take it. Make sure that you log it in so you can be trackable and you can track things, and not just report something, God forbid, if something goes wrong, you report it good or bad, otherwise, and it stays in the right statistics.
And report it if it's bad. Report those bad outcomes. That's the only way. I mean, even with medical devices.
Well, true. But the other thing is, let's say I am a consumer. I go to a local pharmacy or local service to get a shot, right? I get my jab, but to your point, I'm doing Pfizer, but if I'm not really privy to the detail of how it's supposed to be, and I'm not even asking the right questions, for all I know, that could have been in a wrong temperature, and therefore that is not the potency is not there anymore. It could be just like to your point, it's not really moved up and down in the right, stuff. It's
Yeah.
shaken, not stirring.
Shaken, not
You know what I mean? So or maybe
inverted.
the person thought, they heard, the Johnson & Johnson's don't want to shake, and they did the reverse. It could be many
Yeah.
things. So if I'm a consumer, I don't know this, there's a good chance I'm not even going to pay attention to it. Now, if I am educated, and so thus we are here to educate people, if you are seeing or hearing this, make sure you know what to do and how to go
Yeah.
about it. And hopefully you'll be able to see the whole thing and you can stop them. It is your body. You can't tell people,
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't want to have that one. Why
Yeah.
is wrong with this? I mean, it's our
Yeah.
right
It
to actually
looks
know.
like it's got a little bit of color to it. Can you call the doctor over here? I want him to look at this vial. I don't trust it. I
There
want
you
a
go.
different one. You have every right. You're the consumer. When you sit down in that chair, the nurses are amazing that are administering. At least, because a lot of times, like I went to Virginia Mason in Seattle.
Mm.
There's an Amazon super center. So it was great. Then, it was all volunteers from the hospital. I still grill them, as I was saying earlier. I wanted to see the vial. I wanted to know when that was pulled, because they have to date and time the time that they moved it from the freezer to the time that they put the with Pfizer to the time they
2 hours.
added the
Isn't it 2
diluent.
hours?
It's 2 hours for that. They have a 2 hour window, but it has to be thawed out properly. And so you can tell by, you're supposed to hold it up to the light and you should be able to see through it. So when they use that vial, if there's any remnants and you see things in there, then the stuff that's been pulled just question it. There's no reason for people not to question when they're seeing something that's
No,
not quite right.
that
You wouldn't put dirty gas in your car. If you saw water mixing at the gas station with the gas pump, you wouldn't pour that into your car.
and the best vehicle you have is your body. So definitely you do not
Exactly.
you do not want to mess with that one, right? Well,
Yeah.
again, so this is important because I think to your point earlier, I mean, there's a lot of controversy about the vaccine since the beginning. The time, the warp speed that it was developed in, and actually, I just had a show yesterday to discuss some of that research and development process, and we'll air tonight, and that's actually going to help guide some of that discussion. But really, today is really a follow up, and that is important to realize that there's so many things that can go wrong, but also if it's done correctly, it should be nice.
You'll be fine. I mean,
Exactly.
I had absolutely zero side effects.
Glad to
But
hear
I
it.
made sure I was hydrated.
There you go.
I hydrated for days before, and I made a friend of mine cancel his immunization because, and he scheduled it through his doctor, but he had just gotten his shingles immunization. You cannot have the COVID immunization within 14 days of any other immunization. So
people, they're
and
not
the
allowed to talk
doctor
about
is
that.
the one who referred. So, and again, it's just like we have to be our best advocates, because there's no one else who's going to, who's going to be there for us but us. And that's why I love having these discussions, because at least I can help, people know what I've learned. And mine is all based on the FDA data. I read everything. That's what our company does. We're all about prevention.
Well, thank you. And again, that's a very good point. That's another thing that we need to look for. So people listening, watching, understand anything that within the time frame of that vaccine, you can have other immunizations, and you might want to consult to know that if there are any other if you had another symptom or something, whatever, you might not need to do it at that time, because you want to be clear and your body's immune system is, I guess, in top shape to do all this stuff. Again, I'm not a medical advisor here, so but do the due diligence.
No, do your due diligence. And
Exactly.
there's this, the CDC has a great checklist, and it lists all the questions you should ask.
Well, which to be honest with you, I don't think there's enough promotion of that. So folks, if you watch and listen, just go, seek, look, print out, read,
We'll give you
ask.
the link and comments.
There you go. So we'll do that as well. Again, it's important because there are a lot of people that may hear all the negative about the vaccine and the adverse reactions and so on,
Yeah.
or even side effects. I mean, side effects can
Yeah.
be good, bad, or ugly, and but adverse reaction could be basically detrimental and bad. Period. And
Yeah.
so we need to just to be clear about that, and that this is one of the reasons we have
Yeah.
this discussion. Now. Again, you're talking about distribution, then you have the middleman, the government,
Which
the
is
local
warp
government.
speed, right? Warp
What-
speed was all about distribution. It wasn't the
Yes.
creation of the vaccine. And I think that's the thing that people pull that part in. And warp was about the distribution.
Mhm.
The mRNA vaccine, the way that was being produced, they've been working on that for 8+ years, and COVID is just one of those, they had the urgency for that.
Well,
You know what I mean?
it is a family. I mean, it's novel in its own, variant.
Yeah,
but really, it's
exactly.
not. It's still the same family of SARS, and so to your point, it's been worked on. It's just not at the
Yeah.
speed. Actually, this discussion we had yesterday in that show is about when you put the whole world on hold and everybody's dedicated to this particular pandemic. I mean, you're gonna have more brains, more resources, more money, and more time 24/7. So obviously you reduce the time frame. And to your point, if it was worked on multiple years prior, it could expedite. But I think the whole skeptics out there were more, and today are still about, well, there's other diseases and so on and so forth. And, we weren't able to resolve them. And all of a sudden this thing comes out of the blue and we're resolving it. And that's where some of the questions, and then again, the distribution, all of a sudden it's available. And then there's no cost. And then you have all the other.
And it's working. That, I'm traveling. I am back to my life. Yes, I wear a mask whenever I think I'm going to put somebody else at risk. I wear my mask.
Which people are doing. And again, that's another
like
thing.
If we were together, I would be wearing a mask.
Thank God for Zoom, right?
I know.
Well, it's funny because some people would question that, like, well, why do I need a vaccine if I have to put a mask on? I mean, I thought the mask was only temporary until the vaccine is here. And then the question
but I have to protect the people who are not vaccinated. I still can get it and be a carrier of it.
Well, the funny thing is that the unvaccinated or the anti-vaccination, will tell you, well, don't worry about me, worry about yourself. You're good. You don't have to worry about me. So now you're going to have that debate, which is still out there. And I see it. Actually, it's amazing. Like on social media now, it's like a battle going on both sides. There's a flurry of information coming from the pro and the ones that are against. And it's funny because you look at both sides and you're like, okay.
I just invite any of those people to, I work in an operating room. So I got to see those people in the ICU because they were taking our beds. A lot of operating rooms had to stop working. And that's where the hospitals make their money, is through the operating room, right? But they had to stop because you have to have a certain percentage of ICU beds available in the event of an adverse event from surgery. And then, there also was all the PPE shortage. You know what I mean? So I invite anybody who is a skeptic to actually come to a hospital and see what you would never wish on anybody. That's why I want to, protect people. So I'm okay wearing a mask.
No, again, well, thank you. But again, I'm saying some people would argue that today everywhere. And on the other side, you just mentioned something key, PPEs. And you and I had this discussion at the previous show, whereby there was also a lot of recall on those, or at least they were not scrutinized properly, because when the floodgate opened, everybody that manufactured anything started manufacturing those things. And therefore, I guess the quality or the scrutiny was less. And even we talked about the N95 masks that only a smaller percentage than expected was actually really 95, potency.
Right.
So that's actually another challenge. And a lot of people question that after the fact, because you would go to some of the large surfaces like stores, like, the Costco chains and stuff, and you buy masks, but it says in the box that this is not a medical, device or a
Not
medical,
medical grade.
equipment.
Yeah.
So people's like, well, why am I putting a mask on? Just to breathe less? I mean, so
Mhm.
therefore, because it's not going to stop the virus. And again, thus you have the discussion of like, what's the point with the mask if it's not medical? Recently with everything that's going on with Dr. Fauci and stuff, in terms of
Yeah.
how, the emails and the discussion about masks versus no masks, they work, they don't work. Again, not the topic of our discussion here, but the fact is, you said it, the recalls are still there. There's a lot of product that was put into the marketplace that is not as
Well, that doesn't even work, period. Like
well, I'm being nice, but go for it. You do this for a living.
Yeah,
You
no,
see this.
it's just like, it's one of those things where if you look at the FDA's website, when they do act, like in the event, so they opened up the floodgates, right? So there was a bunch of people who they were granting authorization because they just needed to fill the void. And then they saw that the efficacies were not good, or that they were made, in plants that shouldn't be making anything, and they stopped they said that, no, you are not authorized to produce.
Mhm.
But if you then go look at the FDA to see if they have a certification, you would still see that they had a valid certification. But then you have to look on on this other page, which is, in a weird place, not on the device recall list, but on a whole different place on COVID, where they actually list the vendors that they've removed. So, and these are items that they've sold to hospitals, to the chains, it's to associations. Like a friend of mine, she's a massage therapist, and she's good. She sends things to me. So I'm like, yeah, nope, not this one. Nope, 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 nope. So we find, and she's like, I'm getting this from my association. Where else can I go? Because her association didn't know. And then you try to notify the association and then they get offended. So, it's again, buyer beware, but you have to make sure you're really looking at it from a clinical standpoint if you really want to protect yourself.
Well, listen, I mean, PPEs are a big deal in the medicine, world, and in protection. But in COVID, it's been a little bit more of an opportunity to make money. And everybody, literally, to your point, they were selling something, they stopped whatever they were doing, and they became expert in masks and stuff. And again, I get it, business wise, you take out, it's the demand is there, I'm gonna go for it, right? And everybody became a broker for those. I mean, I can tell you, I had opportunities myself to sell those things. I didn't, but I was given.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? Did you read the FDA regulations? Because they are a class 1 medical device. So they follow the recall process, even though it's voluntary. But if they're removed, they're removed. And so the FDA does have the data, but again, it's really hard to find.
Well, Joan, so you mentioned earlier that it's up to the manufacturer or the businesses or the facilities to kind of automatically kind of volunteer the recall, right? But in the case of the PPEs, for example, they're all over, right? And it's not like even like some of these products are in a retail format that you don't even have like a barcode to track. So they're out there, everybody gets a box and give it to someone and they retail it, and then they put it on an eBay and all this stuff, and it's all over the world. And I think that's another problem. And they're in the marketplace, but people may like rely on them for life. I mean, as a lifesaver, I'm protected, but you're not.
Yeah.
And now people get sick. I'm like, well, I did everything possible not to get sick, and what happened? Possibly, defective, device, class 1 device, in this case, a PPE, piece.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and the scary thing is this is happening we have to do another one on medical devices, class 2, class 3 medical devices, because, so many hospitals they had to shut down because of COVID, right? So what happened to all that stock that they should have been going through? Some of it started expiring, But then what about those products that they actually sold to another hospital? Did they notify the manufacturer that they sold those medical devices to that other hospital? Because in the event of a recall, who's going to get notified? The hospital that bought the items, not the hospital that bought the stuff from the other hospital.
Wow,
That's a whole nother.
that is crazy. I mean,
Whole nother
just you saying this like right now, like I'm like, whoa. I mean,
yeah.
well, think about it, right? You just highlight a whole different angle here that we need to be aware of, and I think businesses, hospitals, medical facilities, I'm sure they're doing the due diligence. At least I'm assuming they are, but people have to also be aware that, you know, if you're doing surgery, doing something, ask the question, because to your point, if I have $1 billion worth of products somewhere sitting, you know, I mean, it's going to be hard to get rid of it. You know, just volunteer, like, okay, let's send it back to, and that's the other thing. Are these products subject to recall? Are they going to be refunded? Are going to be replaced? So businesses sometimes are scared and they might just take a chance, and that's a chance that can cause somebody's, you know, debt or otherwise, right?
Yeah, because you could be using something that was recalled because of serious injury. I mean, there was just a recall for some test kits, right? Class 1, that's the most severe recall that the FDA levies on medical devices. And so that just went out. But again, it just went out, but it was actually recalled in February.
Well, I mean, think about that, right? That is serious. I mean, February and we're in July. I mean, we're mid-July, you know, so that's few months out. I mean, you know how many people could have possibly been exposed to whatever that is, and
and I
therefore,
mean, they're medical implants, the same thing. Again, you know,
we talked
we're
about
not
that.
here
Yes.
to talk about that, but there, you know, that's huge. That could be huge.
Yeah, well, listen. Well, we're not going to focus more on that. We'll go back to our vaccine.
COVID.
But yeah, COVID. But really, but again, these are, I think, real elements that we need to tie in, because it's all the same, right? You know, that's the
COVID
other
has
thing.
medical devices. You have a syringe you have
Exactly,
to
yes.
use, right?
Yeah.
That can become recalled. So, I mean, people think I'm always overthinking things, but I have to, because if there's like latex in a rubber stopper, and then they were recalled because of the latex, and then somebody goes to have an immunization and they're allergic to latex, you know, could that potentially harm that person? You know, so you have to think about those added risks that you're doing. It's not just an immunization to me.
Well,
you know,
John,
it's all the steps that go.
It is. Well, there was a hype about the syringes, right? And you know, with the needle retractable ones, and it became like a whole, you know, subject to a theory, or these needles are fake or whatever, which is, by the way, a lot of people don't even know about those retractables, you know, and so it looked like, you know, they were not even jabbing people, and it became a whole different hoax and discussion. so but you're right. I mean, it's a lot of components, and even
safety needles.
But there you go.
They're safety needles. They were put in, and the funny thing is, they were put into play several years back. I don't remember what year, because nurses were getting self-stick injuries, right? Yep. So, you know, they came out with these safety needles, and then during COVID, there weren't enough. We ran out of them. So that's why you see a lot of administrations not using a safety syringe. So you're putting the healthcare provider at risk.
Well, yeah. Well, technically, you know, let me tell you something. This happened to me. My mom's diabetic, and I help her, and I poked myself a few times already, just helping her. So exactly. I can tell you, if God forbid she had any bad stuff, I would have it as well. I mean, you know,
exactly. Or you could give it to her.
But you know, it's very, like, you're right. Those devices. I mean, it's easy to poke yourself with something, you know, just because you're not paying attention, you're moving quick. So dangerous. I mean, you know, back in the 90s, there was a movie Outbreak, right? And I'm sure, which is, you know, ideal for this topic here. But you know, I think one of the main characters, you know, she was doing something, she was like in sleep, and she poked her, you know, finger, and thus she got the actual, you know, problem there. So but that can happen, you know, and it's amazing, right? So now let's go back to Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. We haven't heard of recalls in Pfizer, but I think there was some component of it, as you mentioned, there's a lot or something that,
Yeah, so you have to, again, recalls are voluntary. So with the Johnson and Johnson, that plant had been cited before. So we won't get into that, but
well, let's talk, not into the details, but let's talk about that, because people may think they hear there is a recall, but a lot of people think that the whole Johnson & Johnson was recalled. So,
no,
let's be
yeah.
clear about that. It was
It was
just one plant, that had
one
certain
plant.
lots. Yep. Okay.
Exactly. And I believe that they stopped even manufacturing from that plant because that plant is a known problem. So, and with Pfizer and Moderna, they haven't had any recalls that I've seen. There have been a lot of adverse events, a lot of deaths but again, you have to look at the percentage of what was reported. And if people really didn't know that they could self-report an adverse event, then, you're not going to have as good data. But there are a lot of adverse events. We pulled all the data. We look at all the data, the number of deaths. But a lot of times the data is so bad, even from the providers, because when they're documenting that lot number, they're not scanning. Right. They're manually doing it. So a 0 is an O if you, and that right there can throw it off. Well, and then one thing we haven't talked about is, how long would you assume that the expiration date would be for a vaccine?
Oh, I have no idea. Actually, that's a good question. So give us enlighten us, because I think people would like to know that.
Yeah. So it's only a few months.
There you go. So technically, if that thing stays a little further, out there, then therefore it's not even going to do anything and maybe cause more problem, right, more harm.
So that's another thing when you're looking at that vial, you want to look at that expiration date.
Well, so you
consumer,
and folks, you're hearing it, right?
Yeah, because they've already started expiring, and the tracking is not that great on, how many did we use? How many did we waste? We don't have great documentation on waste.
But we know how many we produced.
Yeah, we know how many we produced.
How many were delivered?
We can't tell you how many were actually administered because of over or under reporting. Waste is really not reported accurately at all, so. Wow. And then, so what remains, how is that being really tracked with expiration dates? Because again, when you're buying it through a distributor, the data gets watered down. So to look up the expiration date of one of the medications, you take the lot number and you go to the manufacturer's website and you look it up that way.
Well, you would need to know what you're doing to do that. Not everybody knows.
Yeah, but if you look at the lot number, everyone, when you get your vaccine card, you should have the lot number. You must have the lot number. It's required. Lot number and the expiration date should be on your immunization cards.
Well, there you go, folks. If you do take it, make sure that it's all the information is there. And
and if it's not there, then go to wherever you got it and make sure you get that data. And if you live in certain countries, certain states like Washington, they have a vaccine database that many people don't know about. So, like all my vaccines are registered when I have them in Washington State. So even if I go to the pharmacy and I have like my flu shot, it's registered into the portal. So it has my tetanus. I love it because I know exactly what I have and when. Yeah. And for COVID, what would be great if we could get to, being in the whatever century we're in, and be able to. I had my 2 immunizations. These were the lot numbers I had. Joan, you're going to need to have a booster in X amount of months. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to do that, to be able to say, because I had whatever lot number, they know that it's protective of, the variant, because they, whatever they mastered into the next versions of the drugs.
Well, we'll talk about the variant and the potency of the current vaccine, because not all of them, there's just some discussion. Some of it is good, some of it may not cover the current Delta variant and things like that. So we'll talk about that in a second. But so one item you mentioned is oh my God, I lost it, right? So we were talking about the adverse reaction and reporting of it. And so there's that report, I think VARS, whatever they call it, and
VARS, right?
VARS, exactly. So you mentioned that there's not enough good reporting, and to your point, the statistics, or at least the studies, the articles I read, there's a supposedly even before COVID, that particular report maybe is a 1% of the true reality of things, which, if you put it in perspective and number wise, 5,000, when you're talking about 1%, that's a lot of that, or a lot of bad, severe, reactions that are not reported because people are just not doing it. And I think, I mean, listen, if I was, if I were actually in a hospital setting or whatever, I don't know. I mean, do I want to do the right thing? Yes, but liability is another issue, right? Then people become a little creative about what to report, not to report. I'm not saying that people are bad, but that exists, and data.
I can tell you that the providers that I work with, when it comes to reporting adverse events to the FDA in VARS or the MDR, they don't do it because it is too time consuming.
Well, there you go. So not even the liability.
And they just flat out will tell you that it's too time consuming. I'm not going to do it.
Right, but there's platforms such as yours and things like that, right? I mean, you are a vehicle for these. So, but the thing, to your point, it takes people to do that. It takes whether it's the organization, the provider, or the individuals themselves, reporting, like, again, be safe, something to just channel back that information so it's documented. And if we don't have that, I mean, ultimately, I mean, people are going crazy just with the statistics that are on the VARS now. But imagine if all the numbers out there. I mean, we'll have a whole big divide, in this realm of vaccine. It's not even funny. So it's scary to think about it. And it's unfortunate, but you're right. I mean, forget the COVID vaccine. You said it, even medical equipment and other devices, can be, even implants devices, maybe, in a recall concept, and, people may not know about them, or it's not even reported. So it is kind of like spooky, if you want to think about it, in that light, right? But it is reality, and we are facing it. So I think the education here is that everyone, make sure you have documentation, make sure you report correctly, good, bad, otherwise report it, and families of folks that have been impacted and so on and so forth also, because it is, if it is known, things can happen. I mean, things can get done and things can happen, but if not, no one's going to do anything about it. Again, it's just a simple, process here. So,
and I just want to let people know, just on the adverse events that have been reported, only 414,000 have been reported. And if you look at the data at the FDA, the last time they updated it was 6/25. So they said they would be updating this data every Friday, and that is a little bit of more than a Friday ago. So the data is stale, in my opinion.
And again, that's just what we know, right? And you're right, we're behind schedule, and then we have the Delta variant that's out there, and there's more shots. I mean, yesterday something came up in a discussion was the like, you can have a lot of pure, perfect, vaccine and no problems, but then you have another lot that could be just completely bad, or because it was handled wrong.
It would be because it was handled differently. That would, because you have the drug, right? Yeah. And unless it's manufactured differently, that's the only time it's going to be different. You know what I mean? So.
No, agreed. But we talked about
transportation.
Exact transportation, delivery, the staffing. Did they know how to do it?
Exactly,
Not know how
yeah.
to do it? That's all
Exactly.
factor. And even like you said, it someone may not share that they had another shot, and they don't even know. And boom, now
Yeah.
you have two shots, and that stuff is doing terrible stuff to your immune system, and your
Yeah,
body is
yeah,
not doing.
and you can have a bad adverse event, but that's why they tell you not to do that. But again, if you have a doctor saying go get your COVID shot when I just gave you the shingle shot,
Yeah, well,
they should know better.
we're not going
But
there, right? But we can
no,
go there.
yeah,
It's okay.
and there have been 5,500 deaths.
Reported.
Reported deaths,
Yeah.
right? Again, 400,000 reported. So, but what's the actual? So, are we looking at really the low teens?
Potentially, again, if we add the
Yeah.
if we use the traditional 1%, I mean, I don't even want to talk about the number because that's going to be in the 500,000 record. So it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
But it's everything is potential possible, right? And you and I, we can speculate all we want here, but
Yeah,
unless
and
we have.
it makes it, how easy is it to report? You know what I mean? How can we make this, and that's one thing that we actually did with our app is we now have the ability, we've created like a form, very easy for people. So, and we're driving it. If you look at VARs and you look at MDR, it's all free text.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how to spell the manufacturer, you could be, so how are you getting the statistics correctly?
Well, we need to share that information on this show, and we will have the links to these particular platforms and apps, so people can actually use that. So that's great, and that takes us to the other topic. I mean, we're talking about the reporting, we're talking about the access to data, but now your concept is available. And these things are out there. People can literally download things and just be able to send information and track things. It's not that difficult. But again, it's knowledge, right? People don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really the problem. And I have, believe it or not, I have not heard anything on the news about it. Maybe it's me, but I don't remember a show or a topic or anything where it says, please take this and report this or do this. This is where you got to report your stuff.
No, and that's every time I would see stuff, I would go, "Where's VSafe?" I know it's not the greatest app, but I used it and it was great. Every day it would say, "Hey Joan, how you doing? You just had your COVID shot." So I'd be, give me a smiley face or a frown, and had I had an adverse event, it would have prompted me through reporting that adverse event. So, and that's what's sad to me is because it was such a great tool that wasn't used. And even the vaccine information sheets, I didn't see one handed out anywhere that I went. And that is required vaccine administration is a VIS. And everything went out the window because it was an emergency use authorization. So people didn't follow the regulations.
Well, let's
even
talk
though
about
it's part of the regulation.
So let's talk about that. So this is a form that needs to be filled out at the time of the vaccination.
It's given at the time of the vaccine. It's a pre-printed vaccine information sheet that says you just received the Pfizer drug. This is everything you need to look at. These are what you need to be aware of. If you have any problems, this is how you report it. We even, for our clients, we customize it so that, they could get directly directed to their local, emergency room, so that's where they wanted to filter all of their adverse events.
So that ties in. Well, first of all, thank you for clarifying that, or at least sharing that, because if you're listening and watching, is that something that we can ask for? I mean, hey, where's my sheet? I need to know. I mean, we get that in hospitals.
No, it's a requirement. Even when you get your flu vaccine, you're supposed. It's a vaccine
Actually,
administration.
I have a printout for the flu from my mom from before, but you're right. I don't see anything for COVID, or at least I haven't seen them being handed out. But that is. I guess it's one thing to have your record and another is to know what you received, what, when, and so on and so forth, and also
Right.
what you could expect in the next 24 hours and next 2 weeks. Obviously there's a lot of talk about, adverse reaction in the future because we don't know. Today's great. I don't have anything, but then I don't know what's going to happen. But you're right. I mean,
I don't know if I'm going to get hit by a truck if I walk across the street.
I like that attitude because you're right. Nobody knows what's going to happen next minute,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah, I have to get a flu shot every year because I go into hospitals. So, I mean, it's a vaccine. I get my tetanus shot. It's a vaccine. There are other things that I have to get that I can't remember, but
well, it's
just part of, I haven't gotten my shingles and I should, but it's just, why haven't I? I have no excuse.
No, agreed. Well, so that I wanted just to touch on the next piece of the form, right? So now we have the form that's basically this is what to expect. But then now we're talking about the record of the immunization. That's something
Yes.
that's also a discussion these days. The card. So now we have the card. In some countries they have QR codes.
Yes, we should. Our application produces the QR code.
Well, it's sad because I mean, I think I mentioned in a different show, but like even third world countries actually have. My father-in-law is in Morocco and actually has a QR code of his vaccination. I have the copy of it. I can scan it, but it will come up with his age and face.
Exactly.
But so I'm saying we haven't done that here yet, and I think one of the reasons is because first of all, I guess the coordination of that would require a lot of work. Maybe not. Everybody's using computers to log in.
No,
the data.
I mean, if our application does it, so all of our clients have that capability. So we go. I wish I had one with me, but we go one further. We actually wrap I do have one. I'm going to reach behind me. We wrap the syringe with the barcode. So it has the barcode for the immunization. It has the barcode for, let me see if I have it. Yep, right here. It has the barcode for adverse events. So we pull off 2 of our labels. So I'll send this to you so you can see it, but because you can't really see it.
Very
But
nice.
you can see how those barcodes?
Yes.
So the top one is telling the patient about Moderna. So they can scan this. And this we put on the immunization card. So on the CDC immunization
So you
card,
tear off and it stays there.
these are independent labels. Each one of these guys are independent.
Which you can scan.
So the person with their phone, they can scan that one
Save
to
it.
get the vaccine information sheet. And then this one down here, if they have any adverse events, this goes directly to VARS.
Oh, wow.
So,
Awesome.
And then when the nurses scan this one over here, that parses all the information about the vaccine into the record. So the other thing it does when they scan that barcode is it checks to see, is it expired yet? And if it is, it flashes on their screen. So the patient knows and the nurse knows because she should never have pulled that one.
Right,
yeah. So,
well,
I mean, so we do have that technology. We should, why didn't we use it?
Hey, I'm bringing the topic because I think, I mean, we should. And, well, like I had another separate show. We talked about with someone that actually worked at Pfizer and understand works at a different company now that developing certain things. But one of the things that, they actually developing a test, like a rapid test that is, that can be you at a stadium or whatever, so people, they don't have, if you choose not to vaccinate, you can always have the immediate test. But we talked about, like, for example, Clear at the airports, having their QR code so you can travel faster and get in and out, planes and airports.
I love Clear.
Yeah. So again, that there is that. I'm not saying that we don't have it, but we don't have it as a standardized process. It's it's different companies doing their own thing, but it's not like a standardized, like an ID. Like everybody's got a social security, everybody needs to get this. Now, the debate about that would be like, well, that means we are tracked, by this and that code is whatever. So you have all the other theories about it. That's the same thing when you have biometric.
Let's get over it.
Well, we have biometric IDs, we have biometric, a lot of things right now. So if it's just a matter of, whether I'm being tracked and my movement and what I'm saying or not, I mean, we live in the age of technology. I think we're beyond beyond that, right?
I'm sure my headset, my ring, it tracks my every movement. So they have to have my data. I'm sure that my headset has to have some sort of data on me. I know my phone does, because on Google, I have, because I travel, I have my best friend as on my location. So everywhere I go, she knows where I am.
Well,
Because being a single woman, you have to.
Well, by the way, you just brought up a very good point about Google, because I don't, if you have location on, wherever you go, you start getting all the suggestions, and and you get all the ads and stuff. I mean, you want to be on an island, maybe you will be able to hide. I don't think we can hide in this world that we live in right now. And then there's cameras all over the place. So just do the right thing. Don't worry about the rest.
Exactly.
But I mean, again, that's an
Get your
opinion.
vaccine, though.
Well, that's an opinion,
Do
right?
the right thing.
True. But again, there are, like I said, and I always, emphasize on this on the show. It's opinion based. So everybody's entitled to theirs. And, some people may.
IMO, in my opinion.
All right. Well, there you go. But again, that's okay. Everybody's entitled to their views and things. And I always say this: if you have a different reaction to the discussion, come on come on to the show, and let's hear your version of the story and share it with the public. It's all good. So the concept is really, we bring it to the audience, and in the audiences, it's again, informed decisions. We have info in front of us. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever. And for some of us, it will be the good. Some of us, we're like, we're not this. But that's okay. We can make that decision. But let's just have the information out. And I think that's it. The stuff you just showed right now, that's awesome. I mean, you already have the whole system. You got one for us, bad, boom, good, here. Flags here. It's technology, and we use it for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. But like, we can have a little joke about it. I mean, people still question, like, we had this thing on a show last Saturday about the flat Earth theory, right? and so I always
round?
That don't make me laugh about it. but so we talked about that. But there are people that will believe that based on their own, beliefs, right? And that's okay. The thing is that you're in a different state. I'm in a different state. We're doing a Zoom. And yet, I mean, I've had, last night I was actually doing a show from Morocco. Last week I was in Australia. The week before I was in Spain. And then the week before, literally in Greece. So we are all over, and there's definitely satellites and things like that. So technology, but people will believe what they want based on their own convictions, and that's okay, because we can't force an opinion on anyone, right? Facts and science is something that we can all use, and that's what it's for.
And that's what I base everything on. Everything that I am sharing with you is fact-based. You can research it through FDA, through any of the government agencies. Yes, it is the government, but and the scientific research. You have to look at the different peer-reviewed journals and such.
Well, that you just hit on a very key component in the discussion in this whole time. There is real science and real research, and there is also BS discussions and for what it's worth, right? And everybody in this pandemic had pretty much an opinion one way or the other. People are out there with their own views on social media, and people are buying one way or the other. So we have a lot of, so-called scientists these days, and by the way, that is not just today. I mean, I think even religion, you read a book, you become expert in the religion. You read a book on space, you become, you can launch, a shuttle. I mean, so we all kind of have that. And unfortunately, that is not the way it goes. I mean, science is like, I literally saw a meme yesterday, and what it says is someone peeping, from an actual hole on the wall, looking at one thing, and that's really what they see. And so their universe is right through that little, hole in the wall. And then the scientific, community is looking over the wall and seeing the whole picture. And I always refer to that like having a penthouse view versus a lobby view. you're never going to have the
Right.
same. And I think that's exactly here. So people have more access to information and knowledge and science. They can actually have a better informed decision. And again, take it, look, search, make the decisions. But at the end of the day, there's information out there.
Right.
But don't just not take the leap and learn.
Right.
You know, there's
Learn,
like
learn.
exactly. Listen, I mean, we have mediums to learn stuff now in a very expedited format. I mean, we're talking Google, anything you want, ask Uncle Google. You know,
Exactly.
and you will find something. Now you have options and you can dig in. You search the first, you know, choice, second, third, whatever. Sometimes you go page 2 or 3 and you still find information. And it's also what you ask and how you ask. I mean, even you know, Alexa and Siri can give you information these days. I mean, and there's more advanced AIs out there too. So at the end of the day, we have ways to learn, and obviously there's also podcasts and you know, specialty shows and things like that, and experts such as yourself that come on to explain and share, you know, the real stuff, right? And again, some people say, well, Joan is only promoting this. No, she has a business she's running that is specializing exactly on this, and it's been in effect, and it's actually helping people. As a matter of fact, if you use those apps and stuff, you should be able to get more access to the data and know what's out there, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly. And so really, again, people will probably criticize and for various reasons. It's unfortunate, but it's part of, I guess, human nature.
Part of life.
Part of life, yeah. I mean, you're gonna have people that just don't want to believe because, and you know, so some people will believe because of their own fate, or you know, again, there's also the religion aspect, and we don't want to touch that. I mean, it's very sensitive. But people have their own. Listen, if it's meant to, I mean, you mentioned something earlier. It's not religion, but you said it. I don't know if I'm gonna get hit by a bus, right? And that's just, that is a fact. You know, no one knows what's gonna happen. We can be talking and boom, done. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
There's a storm coming. We don't even know how it's going to play. Right?
I know.
So things happen overnight, right? No one knows what's the next move, but we all hope for the best, and we all have our own kind of views and opinions and convictions and beliefs, and we try to stick to them. And every time there is an opinion that's different, or it's forcing us to change our belief, it kind of, you know, faces reaction, right? And that's just the way it's going to be. And this is centuries in the making, not today. And it will never stop, you know, with this show or any other discussion. And it's not going to be, you know, stopping to and limited to COVID and or the vaccine of COVID, right? So,
right, exactly.
But the fact, I think the purpose of today is really to bring a whole different, you know, view on the vaccination process. Not so much the vaccination itself, but the vaccine and the components of the vaccine, the type of vaccine, how to track the vaccine, to know exactly the protocols, so you know, as a consumer, anyone listening, watching, you know, what to look for, what to say, what to ask, what documentation to require, where you can actually report it. And I think that's actually really what the best thing about this discussion is. Really, you have tools that you can apply, you can use, and to your advantage, and also help others. Because, you know, if we all do the right thing, I think other people will benefit from those steps that we will take individually, and then globally, it gives us a different, you know, world to live in, right? And better information. So we're coming out again to the end of the show today, Joan, and we can be talking for hours here. So
we can. I just love talking with you. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. And you know, we're probably gonna have to do another one. Trust me.
Yes. Yeah. No, we need to do it on medical devices and this whole recall thing, because the postings, it takes months for a notification. So you know, consumers really need to be aware of what is being, you know, what they're getting injected, what they're getting put in. You know, you can't, I mean, yes, your doctor is the source that you can go and ask the questions, but you know, there are other resources out there that you really should be aware of, because the providers may not have all the knowledge.
Well, again, they have their knowledge, right? And
they have their knowledge, right?
But that knowledge is also being produced by other entities. For example, if
the
you're
manufacturer,
a doctor, you got the pharmaceutical rep. They share with you the information. Listen, I'm in sales. If I want to sell you this mic, I will probably do a good job. But you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I know what this does, and you will learn everything that you will know about it from me, and therefore that becomes your message. And that can happen to everybody, right? And so that's usually what information is. So if we give the right information and all the different angles, because sometimes we're biased when we pitch, We pitch
Yep.
all the positive. We don't tell, it's funny. I am known to be like the guy that will tell you everything bad in a sale, because I do believe that I want you to know everything before you make a decision. And that's
Right.
not usually the case with a lot of people. They'll just tell you because they're afraid to use a sale, to lose a sale rather, right? And so they will just tell you all the positive and all the good, but they will miss one or two items that probably will persuade you not to take that deal. So,
Yeah.
but that happens in information as well. Like we will
Mhm.
give you all the good stuff, but not tell you the bad stuff. And so you're really misinformed in a way because you have half of the picture. You want to have the
Yeah.
whole picture and you see it for yourself. You don't have to take it. You got to see that angle, right? And that's really what it is. So hopefully, but definitely let's do that. Let's talk about maybe a follow-up. And the next one, maybe we'll discuss different items by category that are out there that people need to be aware. Maybe just doesn't have to be an hour. We can do half an hour, but just list items and what they are and how to go about them. That may help
That'd
people.
be fun.
That would be fun.
I'd
Well,
love
you have a
it.
whole list. I think we'll do an hour just for that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, listen, Joan, it has been a true pleasure as always. Thank you for coming
My
back again.
pleasure.
We'll look forward to that next one soon enough. And so folks, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy this particular show. And
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Joan. And take all this information, and search. I mean, Xcelrate is the company. Look at the link in the description of the show. Track Joan, and her crew and her team and what they do in terms of stuff. There's some powerful stuff in their website as well, and all the links you probably can use, and links to information and sites where you can find the information. So it's all good. Take it, use it, and just be healthy, be well, and be aware. That's all I have to say. So
Definitely.
Hurricane here. Ciao. We'll talk in a couple of days. New show, new topic, and new guest. Bye.